Hey, this is Carrie Snyder. She's a registered dietitian with the Health Council, and she's here today to show us a little demonstration on how to prepare some healthy food. And then we have 3 different samples that we're going to bring you out after she's kind of does some of the prep. So thanks for being here today. We'll draw the door prizes towards the end. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Dan. So my name, as he mentioned, is Carrie Snyder. I'm one of the registered dietitians with Northeast Missouri Health Council. Our department's called the Diabetes and Nutrition Center. And we actually serve 11 counties because the Health Council is actually a federally qualified health center. So we work with a lot of patients that are underserved, no insurance, Medicaid, Medicare, those type of things. So I work with a variety of patients. So our recipes today, the one I'm going to start out with is the lentil soup. Okay. And so we'll have samples come out here in a moment for it. I'm going to get it going. It is going to have to simmer for a little bit, but we've already got it prepped in the back, so you'll be able to start digging in here in a moment. And then the next one we'll do is the cranberry almond energy bites. And then the last one I will do is the baked oatmeal, the blueberry baked oatmeal, which is, all these are really good, great recipes. So what I'm gonna first do, take a little bit of olive oil. I have white olive oil. I know it says to use extra virgin, but because I'm cooking with it, it's better to use the lighter version with your high heat. So that's gonna add about a tablespoon. And I'm not gonna, this gets hot fast, so I'm gonna go ahead and cut up my vegetables. So I've got, the recipe calls for 2 carrots. I like to do 3, and then a decent size onion here. So, and I try with the carrots to do, I have made this recipe about 4 different times. The recipe, if you're reading it, calls for you to puree it at the end, using an immersion blender or just a countertop blender. But my family, I've made it about 4 different times. I made it where I blended it twice, and I made it where I haven't blended it. They prefer the non-blended, so that's what I'm serving actually for you guys today. With the non-blended, I try to make the vegetables cut up a little bit smaller. If I'm blending it, I kind of do a coarse chop of my carrots and my onions, because you're just going to puree them up. And then this uses red lentils. So really, it does have the list of ingredients does look a little, for some people, maybe a little daunting, but a lot of them are some dried herb spices that are shelf stable, that you can keep at home. And when I was shopping for this, I like to buy low sodium stock or broth, or low sodium, no salt added. Both Aldi and Walmart were out. So it does have salt in the broth. So when I'm putting this all together, I'm not going to add any salt to it, since we're kind of getting that already from the broth. And then with this recipe, it's great because these types of vegetables are going to be this time of year. Here in Kirksville, where it's cold, vegetables really are not, most are not in season. Your onions, carrots are going to be pretty consistent in price. I know that's something we've talked about a lot when I've done cooking demos in the past. People's concern for prices, that's also a concern for a lot of our patients. And then, should have done this. All right. And then you'll see I have lemons up here. We're gonna add that later at the very end. Once it's really cooked and you've turned off the heat, we'll add the lemon juice, we'll add the lemon zest. The other main ingredient besides the broth, the lentils, as I was mentioning, the spices, is it does use fresh tomatoes. You can get those canned. I like to use the no salt added with those also. Because you can always, people can always add salt. You can't take it away. So, and I have some people in my immediate household that actually have some health situations where they're needing to add a little more salt. And then I have other people who are trying to follow low salt. So those are things to keep in mind. All right. I'm gonna start heating this up so I can add my carrots. Okay. And the other ingredient I haven't talked about yet, so make a mess, is garlic. So you can use minced garlic that's in a jar. I happen to have some heads of garlic at home, so I am using that. I have a garlic press, and I'm going to show you that. It's kind of a, I guess you'd say, fancy thing. I've had it for about 20 years. I think I received it as a wedding gift. So if you do have, but if you don't have a garlic press, totally fine. You can just chop up your cloves of garlic or make it super easy and buy it already minced. You can, usually I tell people about a teaspoon of your minced garlic that you get in a jar that's usually packed in some, it's either packed in water or in oil. About a teaspoon of it is equal to about a clove of garlic. So we're gonna throw our onion in. This cooks for about, I told people about three minutes, but let me give it a stir. So what I'm gonna do, take my cloves, and I'm actually just gonna throw that right in there. And whenever you guys are ready to serve, they can, yeah. So they're gonna start bringing samples out here soon. Give this about 1 more minute, and then we're gonna start adding our crushed tomatoes, which I have a cup already measured out here. And then it calls for 7 cups of vegetable broth. Each of these is 4. Do a whole one plus 3/4 of a carton. I'm not going to measure and make extra dishes with it. Okay. You can see, if you're looking at the video, you can see that my onions are pretty kind of what we call sweating. They're really, that's ready to add the crushed tomatoes. Let me make sure I've got. We're gonna add this. And I did realize this happens. I realized one step where I was going to add the spices. But I'll go ahead and do that real quick before I add my broth. So your spices, we've got, we're going to do a couple bay leaves. Remember to pull those out when you get ready to serve it. We're also going to do cumin, which cumin, we've got 1.5 teaspoons. About 1.5. And then oregano is going to be 3 teaspoons. It is flying everywhere. And then the other one is rosemary, and then we're going to add a little bit of red pepper. So 1 teaspoon of rosemary. And then I think 1/2 teaspoon of crushed red pepper. You could always leave out the red pepper flakes. You don't have to use those. And that is, I know you're not up close, but it is really starting to smell really good. Okay. Now we're going to add our broth and then our lentils. So 1 whole carton, 4 cups, plus another 3 cups from the other carton. You can make your own. A lot of people, I know people that like to make their own vegetable stock using just leftover. So we'll use, I think your carrot peelings, your peelings from your onion, your peelings from your garlic, potatoes, dip peelings, those types, things that don't have any mold, those types of things that are still good. A little bit more. And some people will keep a little bag in their freezer where they'll collect those, and then they'll just boil and make their own stock, vegetable stock from that, and then drain off everything that they use to make it. Okay. Last thing I'm going to add is our lentils right now. And like I said, I'll add the lemons later. I also have some dried, because I like to use lemon zest and orange zest. I do buy it at a market north of town where you can buy it dehydrated, because I don't like to have to zest my own lemons. So I do that as a quick thing, and it's pretty non-perishable. So I'll add that at the end. What we're going to do, add our lid. Let me make sure I didn't forget anything. And give it one more stir here. And this is going to come to a boil. So I'm going to turn it up a little bit. And then they're bringing out samples. And then once it's to a boil, we'll turn it down, let it simmer for about 20 minutes. Okay. So they've got the samples for you. Let me adjust here and move some things to the side, because this is still going to cook while we're moving on to our other recipes. Okay. Okay, so next, I usually, when I've done these over the past few years, I've tried not to get anything super fancy. This is a food processor. There are a whole plethora of versions. This recipe, usually in the past, I've done energy bites of something that has like peanut butter, maybe some chocolate, some different things, but making something that looks very similar, a round little ball of some sort. Ones I've made in the past, it was just you threw it all into a bowl, mixed it up, and formed them. This one, though, does require a food processor. So if you don't have one, borrow one if you want to try it. There's a huge variety of different ones. Some you can even get for about $20. So if it's something you want to add to your arsenal at home. Yeah. A blender, it kind of probably depends on your type of blender. There are some that could do something like this. Or you could kind of do it in batches. And what I mean by that is you could kind of use it to help get things into pieces, throw it into a bowl, and then mix it all up in your bowl too. And I'll kind of talk about where it would probably be good to do your different pieces. So what we're going to start with is our almonds, which is 3/4 cup, I believe. Let me double check. Yeah. So they're raw almonds, not roasted, no salt added or anything like that. Just grabbed at the store. And then what we're going to do is 1/2 cup of dried cranberries, craisins. And then the other thing we're going to add are pitted dates. So I do purchase a lot of my dates at Aldi. Theirs are not pitted. And for the sake of not needing to have to pit them today, I bought these at Walmart. It says 1/4 cup. Usually for your larger ones, I'll do about 3 pitted dates. I'm gonna throw that in there. And let me make sure. Yep. So we're gonna do this for about 15 seconds. For a moment there, I couldn't remember if I put the oatmeal in now or after. So what we're gonna do, and this is a thing you could try in your blender, doing this step for about 15 seconds. And then I would, at that point, throw it into, and then I've taken, in a blender though, I know I've taken oatmeal and put it in a blender and kind of ground it up. So like the next step, I would do the oatmeal and then do all our liquid stuff in a bowl and blend it all together. I happen to just be doing it all in the food processor, but that's a good way to do it. So let me try that. It's gonna get loud for a second. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. So I usually, if I freeze soup, I have containers that are freezer safe that I've used. I've also used gallon size bags as long as I can stand them up, fill it up, but make sure you leave enough room for it all to expand. And the nice thing about that, as long as they seal well, you can lay them nice and flat and you can stack things up that way. And that's with anything that you're wanting to freeze that way is a great option. Other questions? I should have asked that before I moved to this recipe. Any other questions about this? Yeah, so one of the best things, one of my children has had to follow that in the past. And garlic infused oils are great. We've used that and so instead of just your plain olive oil, we've used garlic infused oil, onion infused oil. Make it yourself. You can buy. I've been able to find garlic infused oil at the store, and that's a great option to be able to add some of that flavor without having the actual garlic in there. So that's one recommendation I use for people. Good question. Other questions with the lentil soup before I make it get really loud? So you like it? Okay. And you have the non-pureed version. Again, if you want to puree it, you could, if you have a blender at home, you can do it in there. Do it in batches. If you are doing it in a blender, an emulsion blender, it kind of looks, the best way I describe it, looks kind of like a stick that you would put in there and just blend it up in the pot. And that's what I do. Let me double check it on it. I'm going to turn it up a little bit. It's getting close to boiling. Okay. While they're passing those out, you're able to try it. About 15 seconds, I'm going to turn this on. Okay. And all it does is make, actually, I'm gonna do a little longer. There we go. We've got just small pieces here. And the next phase will blend it up even smaller. So if you were doing this in the blender at home, your pieces would probably kind of stay like this versus creating a paste, kind of what is going to be the end result. Still tastes the same, still tastes good, okay? So let me make sure I get, okay. 3/4 cup of oatmeal. Yeah. 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 So I sent those to Dan earlier this week. So yeah, they should be able to post those. And it's 2 cups. 2 cups of red lentils. Yeah. So I will be, I'll pay a little more attention to telling you the portions that I'm using. So that was 3/4 cup of oatmeal that I added in. And I have made different types of balls like this. That has used almond butter, have used peanut butter. This is using tahini. And anytime I can find a different recipe that's using tahini, which tahini is just using sesame seeds and making essentially a butter from it, a seed butter. Anytime I find a recipe that's using it, because I do like making hummus, I don't make it all the time. So anything that I can use, because it always comes in a jar about this size, make sure I can use it up is always great. So we're gonna do 2 tablespoons of it. And then we're gonna do 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. I do for this, I usually keep a container of lemon juice at home. When it's like this where I wouldn't use the whole lemon, I'll use the concentrate. So that's what I'm gonna use. 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. And then my last is a tablespoon of maple syrup. Just gives a little sweetness. I love these because they are sweet if you're wanting something sweet, but it's not overbearingly sweet like a lot of times like the ones that use peanut butter, I feel like in the chocolate. Just depends on how big of a sweet tooth you have. So 1 tablespoon of that. Let me check my lentils real quick. I know they're boiling, I can hear it. So let me turn down my heat as low as I can get it without it going out. Yep, we are. Okay, we'll let that simmer. We're gonna kind of let that be. All right, this next step, again, you could throw all that into a bowl and blend it that way. This does, to get a good paste, takes about 60 seconds in the food processor, so I'm gonna let that go a little bit longer. I may need to stop, and you'll find if you use a food processor, you may have to stop halfway through that 60 seconds and scrape it down and then keep going, okay? Turn it on. There we go. That's a perfect example. I'm just gonna scrape it down. So do it one more time. Should be finished. And then here in a second, I'll take any questions with this recipe before we move into the last one. You wanna So just so people can see, I'll line something with wax paper. Pretty simple. You don't have to have a scoop like this. You can use a spoon, but about an inch ball. And you can kind of see, not quite really a paste, but ground up as you can get it. If you guys want to do the samples for these. Oh, you did? Okay, I wasn't paying attention. I said I wasn't paying attention. So you guys have had those. Okay, so we're gonna, yes, we'll move on to that. Questions though about this. Yeah. I mean, all of it has calories, so it has energy. Yep. No, I'm just teasing. No, I mean, from the standpoint of, I think of also sustain, like keep your energy levels level, is so using things that are higher in fiber, like your oatmeal, your nuts. You've got protein in your nuts. This is not called a protein ball because it's not crazy high in protein, but you're getting protein from your almonds. You're getting some from your tahini. And then you're also getting a little bit more quick energy from your dried fruit, those types of things. So, but I like to use some sort of sweet snack like this that is going to be a little bit more blood sugar friendly, like that. Yeah, and the way this is, I think it makes 24, and it makes 24 balls, small ones, and I think an actual serving is 3 of those. So the calorie information that's on there, I know it's for 3 of those is 3 about 1-inch balls. No, I think it comes down, you have to be mindful of your portion. So when you're using dried fruits, create raisins, cranberries, we're talking in serving size of like tablespoon. So 2 thumbs, think of like that, compared to a small thing of grapes. So we like to try and have people still include fruit. It's just being more identifying with them which ones are a little bit better for their blood sugars, their glycemic, like what is their response with, and what are they having with it? Not just sitting down and having a piece of fruit or a more processed piece of fruit, which thinking about taking an apple, which has a peeling, and then you have applesauce that's a little more processed, and then you can take it all the way down to apple juice. But what are they having with their apple? Are they making sure they're having some peanut butter, some cheese, something else with it that also helps their blood sugar stay stable? That's a good question. Yeah. Yeah, so you're thinking, I kind of call that when I started practice many, many years ago, we talked about volumetrics. And anytime you could do something that you weren't like extracting the water from and you're adding lots of volume, which vegetables are great about adding lots of volume. I mean, with this is a very basic recipe, the lentil soup. I'm burning myself as I touch it. Very big, but you could add a lot more vegetables to it and add more of the higher fiber. I mean, you get lots of fiber from your lentils, but you can add more vegetables and get it more volume from that standpoint. And that's kind of what you're talking about is, okay, trying to avoid the dehydrated. If they really want the dehydrated fruit, just helping them figure out how would they include it and what would that portion be. Because that's where people get in trouble sometimes. If they'll use a mixed nut, different things like that, a trail mix, are they portioning it out? Or are they sitting down with the bag of it and kind of grabbing at it? So those are good things. Other questions? Okay, I'm gonna set this to the side. I'll finish scooping this up later, and then we'll move on to our last recipe. Okay, so the last one, I always test these recipes on my guinea pigs at home, my family, make sure people like them. This is one I've been using for probably, I don't know if this specific recipe, but at least a version of it for about 4 years. So it's blueberry baked oatmeal. And let me just make sure I've got, so it says bake at 375. I do tell people if you're ever baking, if you have an older stove and you're getting frustrated with how things are coming out, make sure you get an oven thermometer and put in there. My stove is not that old. It's 3 years old, but it still doesn't go up to, like, if I set it, it's always 25 degrees lower than what I set it at. So this recipe says 375. I bake it at home at 400. Okay. So it does call for a 9-inch pan. You could use round, square, whatever you want. I did spray this with some Pam already, just to help with the sticking. So I'm gonna set this kind of in front. I'm gonna make sure I've got all my ingredients. So obviously, we're gonna have some oatmeal. We're gonna have some blueberries. One of the things, I'm gonna talk about the dry ingredients actually first, is the first one that's listed on there is doing 2/3 cup of toasted pecans. You could use, so you're not making multiple mess with pans, you could use the one that you're gonna bake it all in. You could toast it in this in just like 4 minutes in the oven. These, I just did in a skillet on the stove top for a couple minutes at home and threw in here. So I'm gonna put these 2/3 cup pecans in there. And then 2 cups of oatmeal. So 1 cup, and then 2nd cup, we're gonna throw that in there. So we're gonna do all the dry ingredients. I'm gonna do all the wet ingredients, and we're essentially gonna layer it in our pan here in a moment. And then it does use a good amount of cinnamon, so 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. Yeah, go ahead. And then 1 teaspoon of baking powder. And then just a little bit of nutmeg. 1/4 cup nutmeg. Not 1/4 cup, 1/4 teaspoon. Let's be mindful of what we say. And then the last is about 3/4 teaspoon of, this uses just a fine sea salt. I'll estimate. Okay. And then I'm just going to actually use my whisk, just kind of stir together. For everything's getting coated with the cinnamon, the baking powder. I've used my hands to mix it, totally fine. Okay, so what I'm going to do at this point, just so I can kind of get some things moved out of here, is it calls for about 12 ounces of blueberries. You can use frozen, you can use fresh. I've done combination, I've had blueberries at home, needed used up, just added some more frozen to it. We're going to make a good layer on the bottom and just save some for the top. Okay. Okay. So blueberries, then you're going to add your dry ingredients that we just mixed up. That good? Okay. Get that out of our way. So the last thing I'm going to do, which I need to kind of pull everything together here, is our wet ingredients. And then so we're going to have some maple syrup. We're going to use some vanilla. I've got 1 3/4 cup of milk and then 2 eggs here. Make sure I'm not forgetting anything. Oh, and melted butter. So this calls to do 1.5 tablespoons in your liquid mix, and then at the end, take another 1.5 tablespoons melted after it comes out and drizzle it. You're eating it without any additional drizzled on top. It was just something I just haven't ever used that additional. I think it's great without it. Okay, so we're gonna do our 1 3/4 cup of milk. You can use any milk. You can use coconut milk, you need 1 3/4 cup of liquid. I don't recommend water, but any milk you want to use. Okay, and then I'm going to add my eggs. I'm not the greatest egg. And then we also need, how much? 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. And then a 1/3 cup maple syrup. I'm second guessing myself. 1/3 cup. Okay. Add your maple syrup. Add my melted butter. And then we're going to whisk that. And we're just going to pour on top. And then, like I said, about a 1/2 cup of blueberries-ish I have left in the bag that I'll put on top. And then it goes in, it really depends, about 40 to 45 minutes if you're using fresh. I typically use frozen. I find it takes more about 50 minutes just because you're using a frozen food in it. Okay. Pour that on there. kind of make sure. I want to just make sure like my oats and everything are wet. Sprinkle the rest of that on there. And this is ready to go in. And you can, it has optional, you could use a little bit of sugar, some raw sugar, turbinado sugar on top if you wanted to sprinkle some, to add a little. It'll kind of create a little bit more of a crust on it if you do. But yeah, just bake it. It's really simple to throw together, and it's great because you can have leftovers. And that's what whenever I kind of pull these recipes together, something that has good leftovers or things you can freeze. This, I've frozen the little energy balls. Those freeze up really well too. We've talked about freezing the lentil soup. I've never frozen this, but I'm really of the opinion you can freeze just about anything and pull it out and thaw it and warm it up in the microwave. So any questions on this recipe at all? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and especially this time of year, they're going to be more cost stable. And then your frozen are going to be usually the most consistent from a nutrient standpoint, because things that are going to affect the nutrients that are in vegetables or frozen fruits is the time that it's really picked to you being consumed. Well, the thing is about frozen is where it's grown, it's picked, it's blanched, it's frozen all in the same day. So that's one thing it really does lock in its nutrients. I know they market it that way too, but it is. It's actually what happens with your frozen vegetables. It's nice because they're able to be picked when they're ripe. And then they're cut up, blanched, frozen. So they're great. There is really, I don't think, a big difference when it comes to it, and I actually promote it a lot with people and patients, is to use your frozen. And especially if you're a person that, you want something, but you don't want, you just need a little bit of onion. I mean, because you can buy peppers and frozen onions, and you can just take a little bit out of the bag to make yourself some fajitas, anything like that, and then not worry about fresh produce going bad. So yeah, usually using your frozen, whether it's fruit or fresh, is great. I do like when it's in season, if you're able to, grow your own, that's great. And then also to get things more local at the farmer's market when things are in season, I think is great to get fresh. But other questions? Well, I'm going to do one little addition. I need to add my lemon. So I turned this off. Our lentils are ready. So I'm going to add a little bit of the zest. You can do fresh. I'm just lazy. So, and then I have, and you can just, roll these lemons and hand squeeze them. I've got a juicer I'm going to use, and I'm just going to add that directly in. And then all you're going to do is stir this in when you're done adding the juice of the 2 lemons, and it's ready to eat. Okay. Thank you, guys. Any questions? Okay. Have a good day.